Hello, hello, and welcome to the show. Happy Wednesday. Welcome to today's live level conversation. Whether you're joining me on replay or joining me live, because we're on like 6 different social media platforms, I'm so grateful to have you here. Let's get started. Happy Tuesday. Let's jump right into today's live level up discussion.
Welcome to Level Up with Winnie Sun. Market update. Speed round. Award-winning financial pro. And now, get ready. I present to you Level Up with Winnie Sun.
Well, hello, hello. I'm Winnie Sun, your host, award-winning financial pro, Forbes contributor, and a CNBC council member. And as we mentioned earlier, we are streaming live on about half a different social media platforms here, and we are half a dozen, I should say. So it's so great to be here with you. Do jump in, take a moment, introduce yourself, get to know the friends. I know a lot of you are joining us from all different platforms. Wow, we see a lot of audience members today. Thanks so much for jumping in. We're going to tee it off and tell you how the market closed. Now, the Dow closed, unfortunately, down 232 points. Now, you might be surprised by that number when I tell you some of the news that happened today. But yes, Dow closed down 232 points. NASDAQ closed up 53 points. We'll take it. And the S&P 500 also up over 3.5 points. So not huge, but still good, right? Some of that is sort of trickled down in continuation from yesterday's sort of positive information coming about inflation rates and how inflation seems to settle down just a little bit. Speaking of inflation, all eyes are on the Federal Reserve announcement, as today they were thinking that perhaps we would get another interest rate hike. But surprise, surprise, the Fed had a surprise for us. So its recent policy meeting indicated that certainly they have a readiness to raise rates yet again later this year. But this is a big but they are not increasing interest rates this particular month. So this is going to be the first time since January of 2022 that no changes were made. So they're going to maintain interest rates at about 5 to 5.25%, which we will take. That's a positive. That shows that inflation is starting to settle down, like the news that we saw earlier this week. And because of it, the Fed doesn't feel like they need to increase interest rates yet again this week, but maybe twice at the end of the year, which this is important to know. Analysts were expecting just one more rate hike for this year, but looks like there's going to be 2 additional rate hikes. And I think that's part of the reason why you're seeing some weakness on the Dow index today. Now, as you know, Fed Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell has acknowledged that inflation pressures still remain quite high, and that achieving the Fed's target of closer to 2 to 3% on inflation is still going to take quite a bit of work. So they anticipate a decrease in interest rates next year. So that's good news, with projections pointing to a rate of about 4.6% compared to the previous forecast of 4.3%. So still higher than the previous forecast, but at least it shows that these interest rate hikes have been having some effect on the growth of the cost of goods and inflation. And in fact, you may have seen what I shared with you earlier this week, that the price of eggs have dropped so significantly. In fact, it's one of the biggest drops on the price of eggs since the last 70 years. Yeah, 70. Huge. Crazy. Hello, Tedra. It's so great to see you on LinkedIn Live. Wonderful. It's always fun to see you come in, and thank you so much for joining the show. CrossX Fighter Joshua, it wouldn't be a show without you on YouTube Live. Thank you so much for your time being here. Wow, a lot of friends joining us today. Thanks so much for being here. So S&P relatively flat. And we're going to continue on. I mean, because believe it or not, I got some pretty interesting stories to share with you today. Now, one thing that, we've been talking a lot about Twitter, we've been talking about Amazon, and we're talking about a lot of these companies. But one company that's hit the news this week that, in addition to them trying to encourage their employees to get back to work, is out of Google. Now, this is a little bit different problem that Google is having. Let's just say Google's not having a great month so far. But Google has had some issues from the European Commission, talking about that the company may have to sell part of its ad tech business to address concerns that the European Commission has had about Google's anti competitive practices. In fact, after this investigation, which has been ongoing for like 2 years, focusing on the behavior such as favoring Google's own advertising services, it's not playing so fair as the way the European Commission sees this, the company could face a fine of up to 10% of its annual global turnover, which is huge. So, this clash with the regulators in Europe is really significant for Google, as its advertising business does account for almost 80%, 79% of its total revenue. So it's huge. Google certainly relies on advertising. And if they're having issues with the European Union on the way they do advertising, this can really impact their bottom line. So Google has expressed disagreement with the European Commission's charges, saying that this investigation focuses on such a narrow aspect of its advertising business, so it's not fair. But the European Commission is going to continue its investigations into Google's other practices now, including their privacy sandbox tools and availability of the advertising identifier on Android smartphones even. So the European Publishers Council, which they're the group that filed a complaint against Google, has certainly been welcoming of these charges. So the European Commission and Google, yeah, definitely battling it out again this week after over 2 years into this investigation. So as you know, Google currently holds a 28% market share of the entire global ad revenue, making it the world's dominant digital advertising platform. I'm sure Elon Musk doesn't like hearing about this, but it is what it is, right? So previous attempts to settle this case were highly unsuccessful due to just a slow pace and lack of substantial concessions from Google itself. Yeah. So Google not doing so great right now. Google, hopefully you can recover from this. And most importantly, maybe rethink the whole pressuring your employees to get back into work. I think that's gotta, I think 2023 should be the year that we just care a little bit more about how our employees feel and what we can do to show them that we care. Speaking of doing more for your employees, I got to take you to this story about UPS, because literally when I read that story, I didn't believe this. That in 2023, if you think you have it hard at work, well, UPS truck drivers might have it even harder in this area. Did you know that UPS truck drivers haven't had air conditioning in their trucks in 2023? This just boggles my mind. So, this is the news that we came out that we read about this week. UPS and the Teamsters, Teamsters Union, have reached a tentative agreement on talks of their union contract talks and whatnot. But get this. One of the big sticking points that the employees really wanted was the installation of air conditioning in UPS delivery vans. Come on, UPS. You can do better. If you care about your employees, I would say the majority of us that have cars have air conditioning. And given that these workers are in vans day in and day out, moving boxes of all different sizes, some of them being very, very heavy, and sitting in traffic under the blaring sun. And then I think we would agree that you should give your drivers air conditioning. So this agreement states that all larger delivery vehicles, smaller Sprinter vans, and brown package vans purchased after January 1st, 2024, that's like 6 months away, will be equipped with in-cab air conditioning systems. I am like in shock. What do you think about this, Tedra? What do you think about this, Joshua? Did you know that your friendly UPS driver didn't have air conditioning? I actually feel bad now. Like, 6 more months. I think we need to give them, I don't know. I think we need to give them, ice water or something like that to keep them cool. Luckily, here in Southern California, the weather's been really nice and comfortable. So hopefully that's some reprieve for these drivers. But vehicles already in operation will receive 2 fans per van after the contract is ratified. 2 fans, not air conditioning. I don't know about you, but in the hot heat, let me tell you, my first vehicle that I ever owned, we didn't have a lot of money growing up. My first vehicle didn't have air conditioning. My dad installed one of those bus fans, like that would just sit on the dash and it would blow air. Let me just tell you, in the heat, those fans blow hot air. It's not pleasant. I don't know that 2 fans is really going to do it. But in addition, they're going to be installing air induction vents in the cargo compartments and exhaust heat shields for non-electric vehicles. Now, the union also sees this agreement as a major deal. They're in the deal. They're going to address things like health and safety concerns for drivers who face extreme temperatures in the van's cargo areas. This just makes me sad. I'm like, I am surprised that there are still people driving. I mean, I know in different parts of the country, people have different, amenities and worker benefits, but in the United States, like the world's most richest country, that our drivers don't have air conditioning. It makes me I'm actually kind of shocked. I'm guessing our mailman or mail person has air conditioning. I'm hoping they do, right? So current 5-year contract expires on July 31st next month. So the union is conducting a strike authorization vote among its members, and a strike starting on August 1st could take place if significant impact, which would have significant impact on the U.S. economy, as the UPS carriers do take in about 6% of the country's gross domestic product, the GDP. So while the AC agreement or air conditioning agreement doesn't guarantee an end to the threat of a strike, it definitely demonstrates progress in the overall negotiation. So that's a good thing. Yeah. So craziness, right? Tedra is shocked. I'm actually shocked. And you're right. I think it's terrible, especially in Florida and especially in places that are very, very, very hot, right? During the summertime. I know here in Southern California, Palm Desert, Nevada is hot, Texas. I mean, you name it. I'm sure most parts of the United States are very hot during the summertime and sometimes even beyond that, right? All right. Next story that I really want to share with you because I think this is one that we should take pause and just kind of let this sink in a little bit. But so there's a story this today that came out talking about health insurance and the rise in healthcare costs. Now, I don't know if you've looked at your health insurance costs recently, but as a small business owner, I get annual emails from our insurance person saying these are the prices of the cost of health insurance for you and your employees and whatnot. And I noticed that they jumped significantly this year. In fact, I think it's over 10%, if not over 14% on one of us, or maybe more than that. And then our insurance person said, they sent an email saying, yeah, we're going to go out and see if there's any other more competitive options and we'll get back to you, which is something that Derek does really, really well. And we really appreciate him doing that. But here's the thing about this. They're saying that health insurance the costs are increasing tremendously. And you know why? They're saying that it's because, for example, United Health Group, they're saying the costs are due to a rise in surgeries among older adults. They're saying a lot of those surgeries during the pandemic were put off because of health concerns, but now they're coming back and they're coming back big time. Now, what this means and why I think we should think about this is kind of broader and bigger than just one particular insurance company. Because we know a lot of people put off their surgeries or their healthcare during the early time of the pandemic. But it's not just surgeries and whatnot, but a lot of people got really ill. Maybe it was from putting aside healthcare, visits, blood tests and things like those types of things. But also, let's face it, millions of Americans and people all over the world also got COVID, maybe once, maybe twice, maybe 3 times. I don't know. And then now a lot of people are suffering from long COVID. What is that going to mean to your bottom line? Because the last time I checked, most of us have health insurance through a group or a larger provider. Even if you have an individual plan, you buy it with everybody else, right? You don't have like my own health insurance plan unless you're completely self-funded, which I know there's some of you may be, but most of us, myself included, are part of a broader plan. Now, if those costs increase because people have more surgeries or they need more long-term health benefits or that aren't covered by long-term care, but like other health visits and whether that are traditionally handled by traditional health insurance, what's that mean to your bottom line, especially as we're planning for those important things like retirement, right? Maybe purchasing your first home, your first car, maybe paying off your home, maybe like just having an emergency fund. Well, if we don't know how much health insurance costs are going to be in the future, and they could raise by more than 10%, 12% in any one given year, and inflation is so high, what does that mean for our future? So I share this with you because I don't have an answer necessarily, but I think the advantage of being on top of financial and business news is sort of looking in our own version of where that puck is going. And from what I've shared and what I read on this subject, I think we need to think about what that means and how much we're going to need for our own financial future. And this information for my household and my family and for my clients as well is, I think it's a very important discussion to have sooner rather than later of how are we going to prepare in case costs get higher. Does that mean we're going to reduce our health insurance coverage? Does that mean that we're going to have less help when we need it? A lot of things come into place. I don't have the answers for that, but I want to share that with you because I feel like it's a value and I want to make sure I look out for you always because you're my people. You're here as my community watching the show with me and participating. I think the most important thing is you care about those who are with you. And I always say, if I care about you, you care about me, we don't want us to suffer needlessly financially, right? Or health wise or anything else. So we should talk about it. And now that we know we're seeing sort of that little bit of indication that this could be bigger in the future, we should kind of figure out for ourselves what we can do about it now, right? All right, no worries. Segue over to my last story. And this one, of course, I like to end our show on a fun story all the time. And this one I think is really fun. All right, I'm calling this the Beyonce inflation effect. Now, what is this? And you're like, does this really have to do with Beyonce? Why, yes, it does. Because the country of Sweden has reported higher than expected inflation of 9.7% in May, which I should know is much higher of inflation than we here had in the United States in May, which is good for us, but not so good for Sweden. Rising prices for hotels and restaurants were behind this surprise jump in May. So what happened? Well, believe it or not, economist Michael Graham is reported saying that he believes it was because of Beyonce's world tour that occurred in Sweden last month that contributed to the jump in hotel rates and strong uptick in recreation and culture prices. Yeah, the Beyonce effect actually drove inflation in a country so much so that it's making business financial news. So the demand for accommodations in cities on Beyonce's tour has increased significantly after they've been announced, and ticket prices, of course, soared on the resale market as well. So the concerts that occurred in Stockholm drew fans from around the world, especially here in the United States. A lot of people left the United States, went to Sweden to see Beyonce perform. This, of course, partly was because people obviously Sweden, amazing place to visit. I hear like some of the nicest people. Actually, one of my best friends lives in Sweden with her family. Anyhow, of course, the U.S. has a very strong dollar against the krona, which made tickets in Sweden relatively affordable for those of us here in the United States. And the impact of a single star, but then not just any star, but someone like Beyonce. Probably there's like not that many people who can do this to a city to change inflation in 1 month in one country. I mean, probably, I'm guessing Taylor Swift would have this effect as well, but Beyonce on inflation is considered very, very rare, similar to effect of these big, huge historical soccer tournaments as well. It's expected that the inflation trends will return back to normal in June because Beyonce is not coming back in June. I don't know, is Taylor Swift going back in June or someone else huge? We'll have to catch. But that just goes to show you what can impact inflation and cost of goods, and and our livelihood depends on how things cost. I know Tetra was saying this is amazing. I think it's amazing. Cross-Tech Fighter said no air conditioning. That's awful. What if there's a heat wave? Exactly, Joshua. Because let's face it, like last year in Southern California, I think it was our hottest summer ever. It was like painfully hot. This year, we're having one of the nicest, coolest summers ever. And I don't know how it is in Florida and other parts of the country, but I think we can all agree that air conditioning just seems like the technology is there. And in 2023, I like the idea of fellow Americans delivering my packages, and a lot of companies, benefiting from the services of UPS, and consumers like myself benefiting from UPS. I feel like we should do what we need to do to get them air conditioning. It doesn't. I would guess that it's not that expensive. If you calculate the cost of air conditioning on a per day basis, but I'm just guessing. I would think that it would be more normal. But it is what it is. That's like, hopefully they get air conditioning. I'm hoping they get it sooner than January 1st of 2024. But if that's the day, then that's the day. Thank you so much, my friends, for watching this program. And thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for your support, your loyalty. And for those of you who joined me on the hashtag Winnie Sun tweet chat earlier today, I love tweeting with you as well. Incredible. What a huge experience, huge tweet chat. And we'll make sure to share a recap on that on my website. So if you didn't catch that, definitely jump on winniesun.com and you can see all the magic there as well. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a like and subscribe. We'd really appreciate it. And don't forget to catch full episodes of Level Up with Winnie Sun on NASDAQ, Amazon Fire, Samsung, Roku, and now also on LG and several other streaming platforms. And additionally, don't forget to check out Yes Factor with Winnie Sun, which is our podcast, which can be found on Apple Podcasts and the LinkedIn Podcast Network. With that, I will see you again very, very soon. I hope you have a great rest of your day and, of course, rest of your week. I believe we are coming back. We'll see how financial news comes tomorrow. And then if not, we'll see you certainly on Friday for In the Loop as well. But, I'll stay close and there's good news. I'll definitely be back. All right. Take care. I'll talk to you very soon. Bye-bye now.